All right, everybody. Welcome back. This is your host, BoTik, Progressives Abroad. And we're just a few days away from the election, so we wanted to squeeze one more sausage out there. Vegan sausage, of course, at least on this side of the microphone. And we got our good old friend, Lee J, the Bull Moose Progressive, who has actually moved across many ponds since we've last spoken. Where are you now, Lee J?
I'm in Poland right now, and I was going to say, as far as vegan sausages goes, I don't think that's allowed here in the land of kielbasa. So sorry.
Yeah. No, but you know what's actually really funny is that, I mean, all of these countries, because, I got a lot of strong connections with Lithuania and like the East and stuff like that. All these countries, they're very crafty, producing a lot of food products. And there is actually a considerable amount of vegan substitute food products coming out of like Lithuania, Poland, Czech Republic, these places, Germany, all these kinds of places. So they're interestingly enough, I would say more than places like where I'm at here in Norway, they're keeping up with the times and like the market kind of. It's interesting.
Well, I definitely have to do a better search because they definitely are proud of their sausage and meat stick product out here.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I mean, and they always will be, of course. Like it's a part of the roots and the basis of mostly these farming societies that have been around for a long time. So it's interesting. But so you're in Poland now. Last time we talked to you, you were in Taiwan. So you've moved over. I guess you got a new job. That's great. Welcome to Europe.
Just continuing the journey. And I'll keep saying this to everyone, like Taiwan is an amazing country. I had a great time, but I feel like that definitely is a country I could see myself like living long-term in, maybe even having a family, but I'm not ready to settle down yet. And I wanted to come to Europe and see what that's like before I decide to do anything like long-term. But Taiwan's great. Like I said, got great healthcare, great education. But, there's still more of the world to see. And I am actually worried about what might happen with China. But that could be like a whole other conversation we could have later.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, we should. I think there's going to be, especially after the election, we're going to definitely see in the new, in whatever new era we end up in, or just a continuation of where we are now. I think no matter who wins, it's just going to be a general continuation of where we are now. But there's going to be a lot more talk about China in the future. So I think we're going to have to get you on to really get us in on that Taiwan perspective, because it's a very unique perspective. But now where we are, we're at the precipice of, I don't know, nothing, everything, who knows? The election, that's what's coming up in the next couple days. And you might even be listening to this after the election. So it'll be kind of funny to look back at what we have to say today. But I think first big question, I was talking, about, and by the way, before we get in, I should mention everybody, this Lee J is the known on Twitter and other places as the Bull Moose Progressive. So you should definitely follow him on there and check out some of his podcasts that he's been churning out. I know not so many lately since you've been kind of traveling, but definitely follow him on there. So one question that I've been mulling over in my mind, and I've had some people approach me recently, because why is this election, or why are people living outside the United States so concerned with U.S. politics?
Well, I mean, that's like almost too simple of a question. Like, to me,
for us, for us, I mean, we sit here and talk about this stuff all the time, but I have to, it does kind of break my brain a little bit when somebody asks me this question, but I think it's actually a good question to try and answer, because it does surprise me that I've even had people here, in Norway, Americans living in Norway, also asking me why do people out here care so much? You know what I mean? So what do you think? What's your first reaction?
Well, like I said, that also kind of broke my brain a little bit just thinking about the question. But I guess I'll give two answers. Some people, if Americans move away, I could understand why they could easily or be justified in just giving up or not caring. I mean, most Americans in general don't care about politics until the election. That's why a lot of people on whatever political party get pissed off when the election happens, because most of the people who vote don't really even pay attention until they're voting. So it's a whole other conversation. But on my side, the way I see it is as much as it is an adventure living internationally, half of it even when I started, half of it was sense of adventure and half of it was desperation. Like, couldn't get a decent job, but I'm also the kind of person that knows I can get up and go anywhere in the world. So to put it bluntly, or as simplistically as possible, I still care about American politics because I want the United States to be a country that I want to and am able to go back to someday.
That's right. Yeah.
And like, that's it. That's really all you need to say. Like, I don't want to have to say I can't live in the United States for whether it's for, economic or healthcare. And I will put it this way bluntly. I always tell people, and it's like, I'm always half kidding, but there's always some truth in a joke. And I always just tell them, it's like, what's going on? It's just like, look, I want to, if I actually manage to responsibly or actually can afford to have kids and find a woman weird enough willing to marry me, I always tell them, yeah, right. I always tell them three things. I want my kids to grow up in a country where they don't have to go into debt to get education, that they don't have to file medical bankruptcy if they have any healthcare problems, and they won't get shot going to school. That's it. And to me, and as you know, experience personally, like, it's not that hard to get. And the problem is, I don't want to go too off the rails here, but I decided years ago that, like, I guess if I have an ideology or political philosophy, it's social democracy. And I assume you living in Norway, at least as far as I understand, that's pretty much their model. And, people are always arguing on the internet, like, you're either a super right wing, you're a communist. And I always feel like social democracies, that's actually the real center of the political spectrum. So
yeah, it's not radical at all.
Right.
It's not. It's actually, and people would be very surprised. I think this is something that if you do live around the world and you try out living in different places, you do get to know the different kinds of systems that exist. You know what I mean? And the majority of the countries that I have lived in, we're talking Italy, Germany, Norway, UK, Korea, all of these countries, gravitate around somewhere in the sphere of, a social democracy, or at least, I mean, to even like zoom out a little bit more, like sometimes I do think that we should, it's important to use these terms like socialism, democracy, these, kind of simple political terms. But on the other hand, you say, okay, what does that mean really? Like, I would get kind of a little irritated when I'd listen to Bernie Sanders and hear him like go on and on and on and on about social democracy and stuff like that, because I'd be like, people still don't understand these terms, and that's also the education system. But what I'm thinking is that basically what we're talking about is like countries where the country who's being kind of the manager of the people are using the taxes that the people pay to give them what they need, some good infrastructure, some good healthcare, some good education, and, let them go about and do the things as they will,
Yeah, well, and again, like being in Taiwan, I don't even know if Taiwan is even necessarily considered a social democracy per se, but it certainly, functions like one. Like I said, healthcare, I mean, it's like a national health system, so they take a little bit out of money out of your pay, and then you basically, I always tell people, I went to like a private dentist for get teeth cleaned for like $1.50 US, and you can go to a doctor in Taiwan with the health insurance, go without an appointment, see the doctor, get blood test, urine test, get all your medicine, and it only costs about like $6 US. Even when I was leaving and my national insurance ended, I went to the doctor just to get some extra medicine before I left. Even without insurance, I got 2 months of my medicine from like $40. So why is it that way there and not in the United States? Like, there's no legitimate reason except for profiteering off of medicine and healthcare, basically.
Yeah, and I think that's like a big difference. Like, if I was going to explain, I know somehow we got over here because our question was about the election, but still, I think that if I was going to have to explain, like, kind of flip the script and like try to explain, how could you have a system like we have here in Norway, this social democracy, like put that in like capitalistic terms, it's like, well, basically, I mean, I'm no capitalist, and that's a whole other episode, but like, basically there is capitalism here. Like, this is a capitalist society. It just happens to be that some of these things, basic human needs kind of stuff, like what the society has determined as a basic human need is more regulated by the government, the managing body here,
Well, yeah, I was going to say, you know, that phrase that people always say, whether it's like an American thing or even conservatives say, it's like, you got to lift yourself up by the bootstraps and make something of yourself. Well, that's almost impossible for a bunch of people in the US because they literally don't have the metaphorical bootstraps. People are barely surviving. I feel like social democratic countries actually give people the bare minimum to survive, to function, and to succeed. And it really does empower them to become more successful if they want. Like a lot of people in America are already born like with economic or materialistic handicaps that are people in other countries don't have to deal with.
Yeah, and here, like, if in a place like this, and I know in a place like a lot of the other countries I've been to, like, no matter what, like, no matter who, like, you're gonna be able to get by. You're gonna be able to get by. You're gonna be able to like have some food. You don't have to sleep on the street unless you really want to, or unless like very, very strange situations, like very exceptional situations where that occurs. So it's just like the society gives you like a baseline, and then from there, whether you just want to really succeed and become the next Elon Musk, or if you just want to like get by and work at McDonald's, like everybody can get by.
And speaking of that, and I actually have conversations with people wherever I go, whether it's Taiwan or here. And like, I even had someone, very casually having this conversation about like America and capitalism, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, it's like, it's in a lot of people's minds, the myth, or they call it the myth of the meritocracy or the American dream, is that if you work hard enough, you can or will become the next Elon Musk, which clearly isn't true. Like I'd say it's a lot of time it's just pure luck. Obviously, he's a smart guy, and you could judge him on that whether or not. But the point is, like, there is no guarantee for this supposed success that's achievable. Like, they used to just say, work hard and you'll get ahead. And clearly, at least as far as I'm concerned, our generation learned the hard way that that's just not true. You can do everything right and still not come out with not even on top, but just enough to get by. That's how I see it.
Yeah, it's
but yeah, with that said, let's bring
it's something hard for a lot of people to, I think, in a hyper capitalistic society like the United States, to understand. But that's why we're here, to basically talk about this every episode.
Right. Well, yeah, exactly. That's
why we're here. This is basically trying to let people know.
And that's why now we can bring it back to the election, why that's relevant. Yeah. Because, and I actually want to bring it back to something you said earlier about Bernie. Like, obviously, I guess you can call Bernie my boy. Bernie is my homeboy, whatever you want to call him. Like, clearly he has been the biggest spokesman for like progressivism, whatever you call it, leftism in the country, I'd say for the last 50 years even. But him included, we could talk about his successes and failures if you want. But I would say, honestly, like his biggest mistake, and this is what the Democrats always fail at all the time, is the marketing. When he called himself a democratic socialist, he already alienated like half of potential voters. Like they're immediately reflexive against that just by saying the word socialist, which again, policy wise, he's not even a democratic socialist. He's a social democrat. That's another conversation we can have, how democratic socialist has basically become a social democrat in the United States. So again, they already failed at the marketing of their own term or ideology, because, it's like splitting hairs. But if AOC calls herself a democratic socialist when she's actually a social democrat, it's like, quote, it's making herself, quote unquote, sound worse than she is. So
yeah, to me, and I think the general point I'm getting at is like, even if somebody's listening right now, they might have said, "Oh, okay, social democrat, so, oh man, you already lost me." But the main point is like, what's your policy? Like, what do you exactly. Like? Screw the labels. You know what I mean? Like, what do you? I don't care what team you play on. Like, what do you want? And it's funny because one question I posed out there a lot in the past like month or two, I was waiting for like the kind of October surprise, and just like kind of as a joke, like, but also seriously, I said, what would you do if right now Trump came out and said, you know what, I want to win this thing. I'm going to offer Trump care for all. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, it's a total bizarre, like never going to happen, I'm sure, but you never know. That man always pulling some tricks. And I'm like, what would people do if they were, because I mean, that would be pretty crazy. And that, because that would be a legitimate policy, like if it ever was, like in this fantasy.
And that's the sad thing. Like, you know, I think people voted for him the first time because they thought they didn't know what they were going to get. Like, people were so desperate, like they knew Hillary was shitty. They knew what they were going to get. Mm-hmm. It continues, like, you know, there's like Trump's an asshole, but he might throw some curveballs or two. And I think people are realizing the buyer's remorse is that he, you know, aside from him being like a raging prick and having tantrums and tweeting, he's more or less policy-wise governed just like a regular Republican. All they managed to do is get the tax cut through. So it's like, what are we even fighting about? You know, like, because right now, even though we're in the middle of this pandemic and like basically an economic depression and all but name only like millions of Americans out of work, like if you notice this whole election, there's been like basically almost zero discussion on actual policy. Like you got Trump saying Biden's a socialist. He's going to be a socialist. You know, he's going to be a puppet of the radical left, which clearly isn't true. If you know his whole history in politics, he's actually been a conservative Democrat. His policies are basically a moderate Republican from the 80s. Like that's the Democratic Party is today. So you got Trump saying that Biden's a socialist, which isn't true, and all Biden's pitch basically, right, exactly, and all Biden's pitch is like Trump's a bad man. We need to bring like character and integrity back to the presidency, but I'm not going to give you anything that'll make your life any better. But vote for me because I won't tweet. Like that's it. That's all I'm getting from these guys.
He's not really. I think it's like the old dead horse has been beaten a million times. That man ain't offering anybody anything. He's just not Trumping. Like that's it, you know, and that's it. And that's the only way
that's the only way he would win. Like I'm honestly, if there wasn't a pandemic, I always tell people most presidents get reelected. Statistically speaking, like if the pandemic wasn't here, I still think Trump would have been like a shoo-in for reelection.
Absolutely.
But now, like that, but that shows how pathetic the Democrats are. That you need like a global pandemic and like an asshole in chief just to you guys to barely maybe be certified to win. Like, because again, I mean, you know, obviously, at least I'm biased. You're probably biased too. But like the polls and statistics have said from the beginning, even from like 2016, if the Democrats just let Bernie, if they actually really wanted to guarantee to win, they should have gotten behind him and he would have crushed. Because
100%, yeah.
Because if you analyze the policies that if you take away the socialism label, you take away all the negative bullshit, and you just ask Americans the policies, like what do they want? Do they want universal health care? Do they want tuition-free college? Do they want like cancellation of debt? Overwhelmingly, the American people are for those policies, but they've been like, whatever you want to say, like gaslit or propagandized to, or just brainwashed by like media that, oh, you can't do that because that's socialist. And then I say, well, all those countries in Europe, I guess I should tell Norway they're living in a fascist or communist hellscape, right? You know what I mean? And I always tell people, I always follow the data. I don't even care about ideology necessarily. It's like, what are the most happiest countries in the world, at least according to the, you know, World Happiness Index? It's the Scandinavian countries, Norway, Denmark, Finland, all those. Like, I think Finland, at least last time I checked, was considered the least corrupt country in the world. Like, that's a country I want to live in, not in a country where, again, I think it was like a Harvard study said that the American people have zero impact, like literally statistically proven zero impact on policy that's affected by the government. So,
well, yeah, I mean, I was just walking around. We were taking a walk today, like, you know, outside. It's like Sunday. It's like raining. Like most things are kind of closed. It's kind of cold. It's kind of dreary. You know, and by the way, most things are kind of closed because a lot of European countries, they close everything on Sundays just to.
Yep, same. That was a shock to learn in Poland. I was told. I wish I was told.
Everybody's taking a rest, you know, like, and we were just like sitting there, we were saying, well, isn't it funny that in such a dreary, like rainy, cold place half the year, like, we're considered one of like the happiest countries in the world. And what they mean by happy, how they measure happiness is not really everybody's walking around with a smile. What they measure is the distance between the richest people and the poorest people in society, and what is the distance from them receiving, you know, basic needs being satisfied, like
Right.
healthcare,
100%.
like a place to live and stuff like that. And here it's virtually the same across the board. You know what I mean? Maybe some people are a little wealthier than others. Some people can go on a little bit more vacation than others, but you have a very small amount of people that are living in like abject poverty and like on the streets and stress and, so hard. And if you are stressing hard, then you can go seek help for that. You know what I mean? So that's the,
And I mean,
that's the
I was
point.
going to, I mean, I guess the point is that the majority of Norwegians aren't worried about being homeless when they have to file medical bankruptcy. You know what I mean? Like
exactly.
These aren't even concepts that they have to deal with. Like,
that's I have a hard time explaining that to people. I'm saying just literally like living. I mean, dude, even though I live here, I still know that like you never know, like there could be a day where I like have to go back to the United States and be in that situation because that's my passport, that's my citizenship, like that's where I'm from. So even if people always say, oh yeah, going back, wrapping it around back to our like original topic here, people are like, oh, why is it so important for you to like sit out there? And a lot of people have this theme, like you just move away and you're just like traveling or something like that. And why is it so important to you? You live over in the happiest country in the world or whatever. And it's very important. It's important on a personal level because you say, well, that's my country. First of all, like you said, I'd like to move back there someday. And I'm literally kind of out here, not waiting, but just trying to survive in the world. I left the United States at a time when there were no jobs. I was in poverty. You know what I mean? Like, and, it just happened to lead me here by random. But nonetheless, it's important because you say, it's where I'm from. And not only is that where I'm from, but I think the most important point is people don't realize what a huge impact the politics of the United States has on the rest of the world.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes,
this is insane. I mean, dude, and it's crazy too, especially with the rise of Trump. It's not just a U.S. movement. I don't know if I sent you this video earlier today. If not, I'll have to send it to you of like in Lithuania, like there's mad Trump support in Lithuania. There's mad Trump support in Poland.
Yeah,
and they're doing these like Trump rally rollouts and they're like pickup trucks and stuff like, trolling people and like they're projecting in the capital of Vilnius right now. They're like projecting Trump's name on the side of the freaking fortress.
Well, yeah, we can talk about that. And obviously Poland is really right-wing government. They just did they just banned abortion pretty much completely. And that's a whole other conversation. But I even want to make a point of saying like, even Taiwan has strong Trump supporters there who are Taiwanese.
Definitely.
But that's again, because they think he's like tough on China. But again, I feel like the real issue is it's almost impossible to have any real conversations because like, it seems like at least back in the day, at least it seemed like the majority of politicians were actually doing it because they actually cared or they actually believed in something or they actually tried, even if it was bad, like even if they were like conservative Republicans, at least I thought they were doing what they thought was the right thing to do. But now it just seems that everything is all done in bad faith and it's just about, getting that lobbyist check. And I feel like that's the issue because like at least when it comes to Taiwan, like I feel like I honestly don't feel like whoever's president, I really don't feel like they would actually do anything to help Taiwan if China did anything. But yeah, to keep bringing, I don't want to get off off topic. Let's keep bringing it back.
That's definitely something I'd like to talk about in the future because I think the future of that region is going to be very. It's going to be that is going to be an increasingly politicized region in the future.
Yes,
that's totally off the radar. People aren't even thinking about that right now.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about.
Let's talk about the election because I'll be completely open with you about how I voted because. I don't.
Yeah, I think I know how you voted. Let's talk about it because we're both on the I would say the left, progressive.
And I don't, like I said, and that's also an issue. Before we get that, I definitely consider myself a progressive. I think the term liberal, at least in American politics, has become a very narrow and specific definition. Like liberals are people who like pretend to care and are happy as long as they get to go to brunch. You know what I mean? Like and it's all that virtue signaling, identity politics stuff. Progressives, on the other hand, are the ones, the way I see it, are actually trying to institute policy that actually helps people. Like liberals have all their fights are on the symbolism and the words we can say or. But
And like I think like again like I think it's like kind of hard to use this terminology because it means so much to like different people. Exactly. You know what I mean? Because I mean, especially when you just think about like what does the word liberal, just like the word, like if you apoliticize the word, like being liberal, like, a lot of people feel like they're liberal. You know what I mean? Right. Yeah, I'm liberal. Yeah, like I'm happy if people do whatever they want and stuff. So it's just kind of, I just know from talking to a lot of people about this, like people that are more, I would say, like politically engaged, like we are, it means different things. And when I talk to like a lot of average voters that aren't so politically engaged, they think liberal means something very different. You know what I mean? Like it's more just like, all right, what does liberal mean? It means I'm happy everybody does whatever they want. You know what I mean? Almost like a libertarian or something like that, like a libertarian light, or something like this. So it is kind of hard. But I think, at the end of the day, it's like, what are we? So let me set the stage here. So what I'm interested in is that, I know we're all on Twitter and social media and probably keeping involved in a lot of the political commentary on the left. And there does seem to be like a big split and fractioning on the left right now. And I would say coming from like lots of angles, like we have our, blue no matter who, I guess we'd say like wine moms and stuff like that, brunch liberals, whatever we want to call it. And then we have like the, very like vehemently against like ever voting for Biden people. We have the people who are like, they're like making amends with the fact that like this is the only choice we have right now. So, I mean, we've got a lot of this going on, the fractioning of this kind of left that you would normally think would, vote in a certain direction. So what about you? Like, what's your story over here?
Well, I mean, I'll try to be, I'll start off simple and then you feel free to ask some questions. But I was going to say there are some, I guess, prominent progressives that will say, I guess I'll say like Michael Moore or like Cornel West and even Chomsky are basically saying, like, at least they're saying, yeah, Biden sucks, but we have to vote. You have to vote for him to save the, we have to save the country from fascism, basically, and this, that, and the other thing. And maybe we'll push him to the left. Probably not going to happen. But it's like all these arguments are pointless if fascism wins, which I understand. At least that's a respectable opinion. A lot of people, like quote unquote liberals, they're trying to sell us like, oh, Joe and Kamala are secretly progressive and they're going to do all these progressive things. It's like, don't lie to me. There's
no evidence of that.
Bullshit. Like
Kamala Harris is the most progressive senator.
That was the interview to her in 60 Minutes, and they had her say like, you've been rated the number one most liberal senator. It's like, is this a fucking joke? Like, are you guys just pretending that Bernie Sanders is already dead? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, they don't even acknowledge his existence. And how's she?
Oh yeah, because he's an independent senator.
Yeah, how is she the
they
most?
Don't include him in the
not even Elizabeth Warren. Like, how is she the most? So it's like, and that's what I'm talking about the symbolism. Like, they're selling like, and that's why it's just so frustrating. Like everybody, it's all fake marketing. Like here Joe Biden and Kamala are presenting themselves as more progressive than they really are. And then the real progressives know that they're not. And then you have Trump and Republicans saying that they're all socialists, which they're clearly not, and it's just, that's what's so frustrating. And I want to say the whole thing, like the issue with politics, like you said, like these terms kind of lose all meaning. Like when all you have is two choices, like you're either liberal or conservative, you're either red versus blue. And I just want to say one thing, even that red versus blue thing pisses me off so much.
Oh yeah.
And I'll tell you, absolutely. You know why? Because for like 100 years, the color red was synonymous with leftism.
I know, right? Dude. I was just talking about this earlier today. Yeah.
How the fuck did we get that wrong? That just pissed me off so much. Because that was in 2000 election. The news media decided that when they were doing the whole recount bullshit, that Republicans were red and Democrats are blue. It's like, we couldn't even get that right. You know what I mean? It just pisses me off. So, and that adds to the confusion because now people are like, vote red and like better dead than red. And it's like, well, if you're talking about Republican, yes, even though red was synonymous with like socialism for 100 years. But yeah, anyways, just want to get that out of the way.
So yeah, I'm gonna wrangle this back in for a second. So
Please.
I'm gonna say I chose, and for a variety of reasons, very painstaking thinking about it for a long time. I did choose to vote for Joe Biden. I know a lot of people. I don't think a lot of people are listening, but if there were a lot of people out there listening, a lot of people would throw some hate on me for that. And I think you did not. And this is the kind of like classic, like I would say, scenario that we're starting to see on that side of, let's say, on like left Twitter or whatever, you know what I mean? Like something like that. You know, we're seeing a lot of this, you know, not everybody like, yeah. So like what went into your like thinking about this?
Well, here's I'll just say what I would have said to you before I knew what you voted. I would have encouraged you to vote your conscience, and would have encouraged you to vote for maybe someone who actually more aligns with your values and your policies. But the fact that you are a Florida voter, I'd be like, I get that. Like that means you might actually make a difference. And that's a segue onto my story, because I told you before recording that I was living in Florida during the 2000 election as a 14-year-old boy. And I got to see that stuff firsthand. That's actually what first got me interested in politics, because I was in like the thick of like this just bullshit storm.
Me too, dude. I was there. Yeah. I was right there, dude. Like I literally would ride the bus every day past the Palm Beach County Board of Elections and see all the crazy shit, like protests outside and everything. I was there at my high school. Jesse Jackson came and we all walked from we were right downtown. We walked from my house. My school to the courthouse. Like, I was like right there, all the hanging chads and everything like that.
God. Yeah, it's so
I mean, but the important thing about that is like, I mean, the Florida situation. I mean, you know, just to back up a little bit about my decision making, I'm by no means a blue, no matter who. I mean, if you listen to this podcast, you know that I'm by no means a Biden supporter, or and people say, oh, but you voted for Biden. But it's something I had to think about a lot. You know what I mean? I thought, you know what? I'm in a swing state, and I had to really ask myself, in this situation, like I really had to boil it down. I said, in this situation, what can I do with my vote right now? Now, if I was in like California, if I was in Massachusetts, if I was in like New York or something like that, I would probably say, oh, well, I know this is going to be whatever anyways. Like, I'm not, you know, it's going to probably swing to the blue anyways. So, or maybe if you were in like a state where you knew it was going to swing red and there's like no chance your Biden vote would do any good anyways, then you'd want to support like a third party to like help them get numbers and maybe get more funding in the future and stuff like that. But in a Florida state, I said, what is my choice here really? Like, what is the maximum outcome of my vote right now? And I was like, you know what? I do fucking hate Trump, and he's a piece of shit. And like, I can narrow down, of course, policies that, you know, Biden and other Democratic administrations have used to make all of our lives more tougher. But at the same time, I can narrow down some things that Trump's done to make my life, like with immigration policies and stuff like that have like directly affected me and my family. And like, and on top of that, like the dude just sucks balls and like, really at the end of the day, I'm like, I can't do anything with this vote. Is pretty useless. You know what I mean? Like, either I vote to try to get Donald Trump out of office, who I do hate, and like, I don't want to have to listen to another 4 years. And like, also you know, if I was I put it in this scenario because I like hire a lot of people at the job I was working at here. And I was like, I've been in this situation before where I've had somebody that's doing an awful job. I have to ask them to leave and I have to hire somebody else in the middle of the tour season. It might not be the best person, but it's definitely not that person that was screwing everything up at work, you know? So that's basically at the end my reasoning. But by no means do I shame like people for like, you know, voting, like you said, like your conscience or whatever. Like in the end, that's where at the end, that was like where my conscience was at in that particular situation of like outcome, like what could be the outcome of this vote. vote,
Right.
Yeah.
So on the flip side, I'll say on the flip side of that. So obviously, I'll just pull it back a little bit. So my father was a protester activist during the 70s, 60s, 70s. I'd say 70. I think he graduated college like 1972. So he was actually proactive, like protests, sit-ins, all that stuff. So obviously, he comes from a very distinct political perspective, and he always raised me with the notion that I'll never vote Republican, but the Democrats are barely any better. So that's always been like the mindset I've had. And I always tell people when I'm having my senseless bullshit like Twitter arguments with people just assume like, oh, you stupid Democrats always do. I was like, hey, back up, pal. I'm not a Democrat. I've been a registered independent voter since I've been 18. Okay. So obviously I'm more progressive, but I'm not. I think both parties are bad for various reasons.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. Yeah.
So I've been voting. I voted third party most of the time. So I never really felt any guilt or anything negative towards it. I'm just, like I said, this is my voice. It's all I really got. And I'm going to do what I think should be done. Like who has the policies for the America that I want to see? And it's not the Republicans, certainly not the Republicans, and the Democrats. I mean, they lost their way a long time ago. We can talk about that. So yeah, long story short, I'm actually registered to vote in AOC's district in New York. So
nice.
I voted Green and I voted for AOC. So I feel like that is how I voted. And honestly, I actually even considered voting socialist because they're actually, it's a weird thing they're doing this year. They're basically Howie Hawkins is running on multiple like left-wing party affiliations. And they had like a really good, they had a Socialist Party USA website they basically had an open letter to Bernie Sanders and it said why you should vote for them. So I almost did that, but I voted for Green. Just like, look, if I'm voting for Green, that has the slightest chance of making a difference. Like if we get the Green Party to their 5%, then they'll get the federal funding, all that stuff. If I vote the Socialist Party, not only will it be completely useless, and I might be on some list somewhere. You know what I mean? And so yeah, like I said, I usually vote third party anyways. So it wasn't really that big of and again, it's in New York. So like no one can really shame me, which is a whole thing that I think is stupid to begin with. But yeah, so long story short, just based on my upbringing and my previous voting habits, I voted Green Party for president. And I luckily at least got to vote for AOC for Congress.
Yeah, no, and this is good because I think this is really because what disturbs me. I mean, of course, I know it's kind of like, I have a couple different accounts, so I can kind of survey the landscape through like different algorithms online, and then just like listening to different sources, both on all sides of all parts of the spectrum. But I mean, one thing that disturbs me a bit is that I see this like cannibalization of like the voters that should really be strategically like organizing, you know what I mean? Like, because I agree, like, dude, I think that in New York, I mean, like whether you're voting, like whatever you're voting, just like purely your conscience, or if maybe your conscience leads you to like a strategic vote or whatever. Because like for me, like, yeah, like I wish I didn't have to vote for any of these people. And yeah, then the answer would be like third party. But in my particular situation, and many other people will find themselves in these particular situations, maybe this strategy is for a different outcome. You know what I mean? Like, because I mean, there's going to be, unfortunately, whether we like it or not, there's basically one outcome, another outcome, and maybe a secondary or side outcome is also that some third parties will get like some more votes this time around if people decide to vote that way. But like what I think is I see a lot of like cannibalization on the left of just like, I mean, there's voter shaming coming from all sides. There's these like disgusting like blue no matter who people that are just like, I can't believe it, you're supporting the Trump, he's the Hitler, blah blah blah. I mean, and then on the other side, there's like, you know, people that are voting third party or not voting at all. And they're like, you know, hating on people who are, you know, choosing to vote for Democrats. Like it's more about like your reasoning, you know what I mean? So I think there's a lot of people that have no reasoning. They're just blindly voting and whatever. Like they should really just get out of the conversation. You know what I mean? And then there's people that are like blindly like, yeah, there's like a lot of blind spots all over the place. And I think it's really good that, you know, people have more conversations like we're having right now. Like I totally like understand your you know what you're saying, and I think you understand what I'm saying.
And like I said, 100%. Like I said, the fact that you're in Florida don't even need to say anything else. Like I totally get
right?
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
I get it.
like that. Yeah, no, I mean the thing is like, but I can say this too. The one thing I did become aware of this time, because I mean I didn't want to vote for Hillary either, you know what I mean? But that time it was like, well, I'm not going to vote for Trump, and I agree, I admit it's like kind of the same thing this time. But at the end of the day, although I went through a lot more reflection this time around, you know what I mean? And but I, you know. And what I think is it's kind of sad in a way. Like what I've learned from a lot of this election coming up is it's kind of sad in a way that maybe people are so inactive politically that so many people feel that this one vote is kind of their voice, you know what I mean? Because it is your voice. It is part of our voice. Like it is a very distinct part of our voice as voters. But on the other hand, there's so much more we need to be aware of. You know what I mean? And so, and again, this is not me saying like, oh, right after we get Biden in, then, or right after, you know, no matter who wins this election, it's just another day on the journey to, you know, pushing more progressive policies. You know what I mean? You can sit around and say, oh, well, somebody can sit around and project, oh, well, a Trump win will mean that just like further collapse of the system. And then in 2024 or whatever, or along the way or whatever, or a Biden win just means a lot of people are going to fall asleep and whatever. Okay, it's like, okay, whatever. All of these things are strong possibilities. But at the same time, it's like people need to be more active on a, you know, daily basis as like the fabric of your life. You know what I mean? Like not just get all hyped up when the election comes around. Right. You know what I mean? I
just want to say, I think the problem is with that is that, you know, I guess the majority of Americans are so economically insecure. That's like the most politically correct way to say it, is most people are just trying to survive. So they don't really have the time or motivation to be as politically engaged as they should.
That's right.
And even if they do, then they just end up in their echo chambers. You know, whether you're watching just Fox News or American News Network or, you know, MSNBC, it's the same. You know, it's like the feedback loop. So you're not doing any sort of like critical thinking, and that's why we end up in this bullshit like duopoly of, you know, red versus blue, Democrat, Republican. I mean, there's, like I said, there's people out there that will vote for, you know, I mean, will vote for anybody if it's got an R or a D next to their name. And that's the biggest problem at all. Like, remember, it was a couple of years ago, was that Roy Moore guy from Alabama? He was basically like accused of like going after like underage girls or like ridiculous. And he still almost won. And it was apparently only because there's like record number of like black women came out to vote against him. But it's like, it just shows how strong and, you know, poisonous this blind partisanship is. So I feel like, unfortunately, to get into like I don't even know if it's conspiratorial, but I just think, at least for me, looking again, having grown up, matured a lot, and realizing things and living overseas and looking back at the US from an outward perspective, I think it's all like it's all intentional, basically. You know, keep everybody poor and uneducated, basically, and then you can get away with everything. I mean, that's how I see it. Why doesn't our country have a good education system? Why don't we want our people to be healthy? You know, it's just, to me, it's not that complicated. Everything to me, it's all not complicated. I always go for what's the data, what's the facts. And my favorite word, or one of my favorite words at least, is nuance. And I feel like there's no nuance in politics anymore.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's
blue, Republican, Democrat, liberal, conservative. That's it. There's no you know, some people I met a guy in Taiwan who's like, he considers himself a socialist, full on socialist, maybe even a communist, but he wants his Second Amendment rights. You know, there's people out there. I feel like American politics is like, if you're a liberal conservative, you have to believe in these certain things only. And that's where this rigidness, and because both parties basically function is the same way, more or less, like the only real political discourse is about which I call them bullshit social issues, which, you know, are I understand why they're important. But like, I put it this way, the more we talk about the Second Amendment, which they're never going to repeal, or abortion, or like, you know, identity politics, or Trump tweets, the more we focus on that, the more that basically we're allowing them to ignore the real meat and potatoes of policy that we are desperately in need to implement if our country is to survive.
Mm-hmm.
That's
right. Yeah. I mean, it's that's the thing. Yeah, nuance, man. I say it all the time. We need more nuance. And it's really unfortunate. It's funny. I was listening to a writer who was, it's been like, a lot of these foreign reporters and stuff have been traveling around United States recently and, reporting on the upcoming election. And this guy was saying, this guy was saying, he was actually more like a conservative guy, but he said something really interesting. And he was just like, yeah, he's like, I travel around and I talk to all these people, Trump people, third party people, red light, blah, blah, blah. And he said, and the problem is that so many people just don't want to talk about their political views. And he's like, and this guy was from the UK. And I was like, it's so true. I have that problem a lot of the time. And I think it's maybe, I don't know if it's less of a problem in our generation, because we just seem to be, I don't know, it seems to be easier, but still not like, it's a part of what you mentioned where people just, a lot of times people just don't have the time or the resources, like mental resources to like dedicate towards, going deeper into politics or deeper into policy and stuff like that. But it's also just kind of, I think in many ways, part of our culture, at least coming from the States, where a lot of people don't like to talk about politics to begin with. Like, how many times have you heard, I mean, maybe it sounds like you grew up a little bit different too, since your dad was like a avid activist, but I mean, I don't know. I've heard it so many times, like, oh, I don't want to get political. Oh, I don't want to talk about politics,
well, yeah, maybe this phrase. I always tell this to people who aren't American either. Like in America, at least what I remember growing up, is like there's a phrase, there's three things you don't talk about at the dinner table. Sex, politics, or religion. Like that,
yes,
yeah. Like you don't, like, if you want to have pleasant conversation, or you don't bring these up, because it's not that. Put it this way, I just feel like most people that I've experienced in America, like they have, like, this critical thinking is out the window, and as soon as you bring up politics, people get emotional and very angry.
Just that you're bringing it up.
Yeah, just bringing it up. It's like, oh, real? Oh no, yeah. It's just like, and most people, from my experience, you can't have a civil discussion anymore. That's
well, but it's also because in general, in general, like, a lot of people just don't have the experience and the practice in having discussion. You know what I mean? Like, like we, for example, the conversation that we're having right now, like, although, we voted differently, that's okay. We understand our reasonings why, and we sorted that out. But for a lot of people, that would already, even on the left, that would already been like the end of the discussion. They'd been like, I can't talk to you. Like, you're just some people might say, oh, well, you're just like supporting like the continuation of the bullshit. And it's like, I mean, yeah, and I'm,
progressives will shit on you for voting for Biden, and then the liberals will shit on you for not actually liking Biden. You know what I mean? Like, there's
exactly
win. There's nothing.
And I'm just like, yo, like, it's just, there's a lot more nuance to the situation. And I understand like all sides of the situation. I understand why these people just vote blue no matter who, and they don't want to care about it. I understand why these people are so vehemently opposed, because I am one of those people that is vehemently opposed to like a lot of the bullshit that's going on. But at the same time, it's like, you got to make a choice and you got to like think about it. And I think that's the problem, is I think a lot of people just aren't thinking on all, I mean, and it's funny, we're talking about all sides, but we're mostly talking about just like all sides of the left right now. And then if you want to get to try to talk to your right-wing friends or your right-wing family members and stuff like that, or it's just almost impossible. And it's actually really unfortunate, like this guy was saying, it's unfortunate, and he was saying the same thing, because how do you ever get to a nuanced conversation about these issues if you can't even bring the topic up? You know what I mean? And this is really, it's unfortunate,
well,
really
and we've gotten worse and worse and worse and worse, like I said, because of the lack of substance our politics has become. And I feel like it's a conflation. I honestly feel like in a lot of ways is that, a lot of it's actually, American politics is like religion for a lot of people. Like a lot of people aren't religious, and there are a lot of people that are. And a lot of people aren't engaged in politics, and a lot of people are. And those people that are engaged in politics, like, it's not, put it this way, for some people, especially whether it's left or right, like I know people like my friend's dad, you'd say he's like Republican classic. Like he was against, my friend told me he was against Trump. He thought he was a clown, a buffoon, a moron. But as soon as he became the nominee, he like lockstep supports Trump because he's Republican and that's what Fox News tells him to do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the problem is that both of these right now, this election, like this election is being both seen as such an existential issue. Like some people on the right supporting Trump think if they vote for Biden, it's the end of the country as we know it. And socialism, communism will take over. And people on the left think if Trump wins, then democracy's dead and we're going to become fascist, when they're both just like doddering old men who are just puppets for the real, like the whatever military industrial complex, whatever. The point is that it's not, people need to like emotionally detach themselves from politics for it to be functional, because sometimes it's people's worldview. It's their whole life. Like they can't not vote for Trump because they can't vote for the socialist Democrat, but this guy's a piece of shit, but he's a Republican. So it's like the way I see it, some people's whole worldview, what makes them who they are, is centered in their politics. And again, like my friends, conservative dads, they're in their 60s and 70s. Like they're not going to change no matter how bad he is. Like their brain does not allow them to, it's like, they can't admit to themselves that they were wrong. So that's what happens with blind partisanship, is that it becomes a religion to some people, the way I see it. And then it just comes to that. Some people just can't admit that they're wrong, no matter how bad he is.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to add one thing I did have concluded after all of this is that I'm definitely deregistering myself from the Democratic Party after all this, Good. Tomorrow.
I'm proud of you to say that, because, like, again, I've been an independent my whole life, and I've never been a Democrat. And I've always said I would become a Democrat if they had balls. Clearly they don't have balls, and they don't want to get any balls anytime soon.
No, it's like, dude, the thing is like, for me, it's just really, I always felt like I'm an independent, but, I always kind of just like voted in that persuasion. But I'm seeing that it's becoming, I think many people should deregister in this way, like, because it's becoming more toxic. It's becoming more and more toxic to like show them that there's support, like.
Yeah, well, that's the scam. It's like, well, no matter how shitty we are, you have to vote for us because that guy is slightly shittier than we are. And that's the scam. So, obviously, I understand why people are freaking out because whatever Trump, however they feel. But going forward, assuming there is a forward, who knows what's going to happen. But I just feel like going forward, like if progressives stop voting for Democrats and that causes Republicans to win like Senate or congressional seats, then I'm like, then good. Then they should, I will say this, they should lose until they're forced to adopt progressive policy. That's basically how I see it. Yeah,
I think the thing is that I also kind of think like that. I just think, what really, honestly, like on a really global level too, just to like bring it back to the broad idea is like, one reason why I don't really have, I would never say that I'm a participator in the Trump derangement syndrome, because I'm pretty well aware that, a lot of the stuff is just systemic. The majority of all like 99.9% of the problems that we have is just really structural and systemic. But one thing I can say, one thing that for me has always been really dangerous about Mr. Trumpy Doodles is that, dude, you can see the impact that it's having, like, culturally, like, on the world. You know what I mean? Like, it really is. In a way, it's the foil of the, let's say, well, who said it once? Voting for like Democrats, like Hillary, especially, she was talking a lot about incremental change. You know what I mean? And even Biden, Biden, I don't know, even that's like the same person talking about incremental change, and that's kind of the foil of that. It's like complete like cultural like right collapse, which is kind of like, because Trump's just such a cult of personality. Like for me, he's just somebody that I want, and I wanted since the beginning, since 2015. I just didn't want him to take up time on the airwaves because he's has such a negative.
Well, yeah,
Like,
I mean that's,
for me, that's my main reason at this point. Like I said, what can I do with this vote? And I said, if that's the best thing I can do with this vote, then I'm just going to do that, because it's like culturally he's very dangerous, and you've seen it. You've seen the impact like over time. I mean, it's not just Trump. It's like right wing leaders in populist right wing leaders in Poland and Hungary and France and Brazil. I mean, all over the place.
Yeah, well,
you know what I mean?
Trump is I've said it before. I call Trump's the winning model now. He's demonstrated that you can be like a loudmouth, like idiot asshole. You know, you can use racist. I don't know. You know, whatever. Describe him that way, but it's a winning model. He shows that you can be completely inexperienced and incompetent and all just like bluster and strong man. It's a winning model now in the democratic world. So now this is
and that's a little, and that to me has always been very like that's definitely like, there's a lot of things that need to be changed, but that's just like a big thing that you think, I don't even, the problem is that we let that in the forefront, we let that in the spotlight, because now it's that Trumpy virus that all the conservative judges, the 400 or whatever appointments that he made.
Oh yeah,
like
the whole judge thing. That has, and that's what the media pisses me off so much, because that whole that they basically infected the federal judiciary with a bunch of unqualified right wing extremists, and it's more or less gotten like zero press coverage.
Yeah. And like I said, this is kind of, in a way, I mean, let's say the Hillary, Clinton, Biden, and kind of incremental change. Like somebody said, it was so great. It was like the slow, it's like the slow intoxication of incremental change. You know what I mean? Like you just like, it's like for a lot of people, that's just like good enough. You know what I mean? And this is also very toxic, extremely dangerous, and in different ways, more structural ways that we don't see, more, ways that you probably see, more in Afghanistan and you see in the impoverished parts of America than the average, middle class voter, well, increasingly also the middle class, but the average voter sees in front of their face. Trump is the blam, like the big explosion at the end of the movie that everybody's like really concerned about. And at the same time, some people are really concerned about that big explosion at the end of the movie, and some people are really like digging that explosion at the end of the movie. And that's kind of what is, problematic about this particular situation, not to detract from the problematics of the other situations, but this one's easier to see. So, we used to think, oh, maybe if we just don't let him in the office, then that won't spread. But now it spreads. It's gonna be much harder to, if ever, to get that virus out.
There's QAnon people running for Congress, and it's
out of control.
It's possible that they might win. Like, put it this way, two things I want to say is like, I've been telling people, like, voting for Trump is like shooting yourself in the face, and voting for Biden is like drinking the hemlock that Socrates had to drink. Like, you're dead either way. Yeah. Do you care if it's faster or slower? That's just your or whichever one works. That's just your personal preference.
Yeah, and I do think that was kind of like I by no means think that like really much will change by a Biden win. I just think that, but I do think it might be like especially culturally, like if you can just get that big orange mofo off the screen, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. He'll probably be on other screens.
Well, and that's what I want to talk about, because that's another scary thing too. Because here's the thing: the Democrats obviously have basically learned nothing from what caused him to get elected in the first place. They just think it was like an electoral fluke. Like, Hillary was a bad candidate. She did all these things wrong. She didn't have charisma. Like, they're still blaming Russia and the progressives, whatever. The point is, the way I see it, you can talk about the nuances, but generally speaking, like, there's like, he has this crazy 30%, but then he had like the other like normal people that voted for him, is because the system was so broken and they were so desperate they knew Hillary wasn't going to do anything different, just continue the status quo. They were so desperate for change, they were willing to vote for that loudmouth asshole. So, generally speaking, that's how I get, like, how I could see how a normal person who isn't just like, conspiracy minded or racist or whatever, I could see how a struggling normal person living in the Midwest or in like a coal mining town got pissed off that the political class has done nothing to make their lives better. And this guy, even though he's a loudmouth, liar, cheat, like like every bad adjective in the book you could use to describe him, basically, but he might be good, and he basically hasn't done anything except he's made them feel like they have a voice. His election was, I honestly call it the fuck you election.
Like, yeah, it was basically like very, very similar to Brexit situation.
Yeah,
very similar protest, a lot of protest voting going on, and a considerable amount of people that actually identify with him.
Right,
so.
And I guess the point I was trying to make is that in the end, the Democrats just thought it was like a fluke. They don't know why they lost, why he won, and if Biden wins, it's going to be like they're going to think it's a referendum on their shitty neoliberalism that's basically killed our country, and do nothing. And if they lose, it's the progressives' fault. Even though I think that the libertarian probably will vote more, so they'll never learn from their lesson. And I will say, like I've been saying this for a while too, it's like the Democratic Party establishment of the DNC. I always say to them, it's like, look, they actually don't. They just want, if Trump just shut the fuck up and didn't tweet and didn't insult, they would more or less be fine with most of his policies that he's done, because it's basically neoliberalism on a little bit with an asshole in front of it. But Biden is going to go back to 2012, and all the people are thinking it's going to be fine, but it's just going to make things worse. So as long as what do they say? Oh yeah, as long as their taxes are low, their stocks are high, and they can afford to send their kids to private school, these, brunch liberals don't really care who is president.
That's right. And it's funny. I think I just realized, Lee J, that I got to wrap it up for today.
I got to roll. So much to say.
So much to say. We should do this again soon. Actually, what I wanted to say, I just wanted to say that I think on Tuesday we're going to do a live stream. So if you want to hop on there in the evening, I'm going to do it with my friend, my cousin that lives in Colombia, so we can get a global live stream.
Oh, absolutely. And we're the same time zone, right? So that should work. Fine. Yeah,
we'll probably be, I don't know, commenting on what's happening during the election day, because it won't be quite over yet. But it would be kind of funny to hop on there and, I don't know, have some beers or something and just see what's going on.
Let's do it.
Yeah, cool, man. Well, hey, thanks so much. Feel free to stick around for a minute after the show, and thank you everybody for listening. Thanks for coming on today. Really, from our first show from the same time zone, and so I think we'll be able to do this a bit more often now, and sharing our variety of opinions and voting strategies. I think it's a very healthy conversation that I hope other people listen to and realize that, just vote how you think is best, yo. Like, just do it.
Yeah, do what you want. Do what makes you lets you sleep well at night, and don't let anybody shame you otherwise. That's what I tell people.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a good way to do it. However you can sleep at night. If you feel good about it, then do it. Don't give into the pressure. I mean, and be okay if you decide to vote, a bit more mainstream, or if be okay if you decide to vote a little bit out of that. Just do what feels best. So yeah, that's what we were trying to express today, I think. So yeah, thanks a lot, man, for coming on the show. If you're listening, please subscribe. Please share this episode with everybody in the whole world, and we'll be back again soon. So thanks a lot. Peace.